Yes.
And so we've just introduced Captain Sue Young, the guest of honor. And next to her is Kathy, one of my dear friends, Kathy Conheim, and her special friend, Sandy. And I've known them for some time also. And then there's Jinx Hack Ring, and her husband, Peter. And, you know, in the Navy, and my dad was Navy, as some of you know. And in the Navy, we stick together and we often are stationed together. And as a matter of fact, as I remember, Jinx, my mother was the matron of honor for your mother, my Aunt Ginny.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yes. And so, and then next is my dear friend, Chiefy Ward, Captain, Chiefy Ward, submariner, who married Sue Shade Ward, and the Shades, my dad and admirals, and they were both admirals, and my dad and Uncle Arn were classmates, and we also were very dear friends through many, many years growing up. So those are my guests today. I was hoping that my doctor would come. Maybe she'll come late. She said if she had a clinical problem, she wouldn't be able to come. So, and we are also going to have Sean Kelly, who is our new CEO of Front Porch. Front Porch, as most of you know, is the main provider, and Wesley Palms is one of 19 communities. And we also have a new person here, our new leader, and that is the executive director of Wesley Palms, Justin Weber. And Justin asked if he could bring his daughters, and I said, of course. So, Justin, you want to introduce your daughters?
Sure. I told Beth that anywhere there's girl power, I want to make sure that I bring my daughter to. Maisie and Willa and Gwen.
Does she come up here? Yeah. And we just had another special person come whom I sort of wrangled into doing this, and she said yes. This is Jenna Van Zel. Is that the way you pronounce it, Jenna? Yes. Yes. And she's the commanding officer of the USS Savannah. Anybody hear you?
I think so. Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, well, is there anybody else? I think that's it. So I think we're ready to roll.
All right. Today we're going to be reading excerpts from My Navy 2, a creative memoir written by Beth Coye that tells the story of her Navy career. We'll begin in May 1965, when Beth was finishing up her master's in international relations at American University, writing to her mother and father.
If my comps maintain my class ranking, I'll be #1 among 37 naval officers in our class. I feel proud for myself and for Navy women. My classmates have been super supportive. What pleases me most about the possibility of being at the top is that no one can say you're using your dad's influence to get good jobs and fitness reports. The School of International Service at American University couldn't care less that my father is an admiral. As we've discussed, being a Navy junior produces both positive and negative effects. One of the negatives for me is the perpetual prodding from lesser lights who think I can get what I want through dad's power and influence. Far from the truth, and I detest the inference. I'm excited about where I might go for the next duty station, hoping for the Naval Academy. They have 2 billets open in the history department. Keep your fingers crossed for me.
May 1965, Commander Streeter speaks to Lieutenant Coye by phone.
Congratulations, Lieutenant. I understand you were the only woman in your class of 37 naval officers at American University in the International Relations Master's program and came out first. That's special. As #1, you should get the pick of billets available. I see you selected the Naval Academy faculty in Op Nav 63, a political military affairs, a briefer to the Chief of Naval Operations as your top choices.
Yes, ma'am. I'm an academic at heart, as you may know, and would love to be on the faculty of the Academy, teaching political science and naval history.
Okay, I will work with the Academy and see what we can do.
I really hope I can be at the Academy, my dad's alma mater. Thank you for your time.
1 week later, on the phone.
I'm sorry to report that the Naval Academy has never had a woman on its faculty and does not want one now. The powers that be turned you down flat because, as they said, she doesn't have enough gray hairs. From your official picture, you are too attractive to teach middies. They will be looking at you and not paying attention to what they are saying. They say, tell her to try again in 10 years.
Oh, well, that is what a bunch of jerks. Sounds to me as if they turn me down because of my gender and not my looks. They just don't want a woman, even the top woman in a class of top officers to begin with.
Sorry, Lieutenant. I will move you to the Political Military Affairs Billet at the Pentagon, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
A week later, Beth wrote to Robin, her best friend from college.
Robin, so far I've had 2 strikes against a great new billet. The first was a strikeout with the Academy. The second strike hit today. I've been excited ever since my detailer called and said it looked like I'd be sent to the Pentagon in the Navy's Political Military Affairs Division to a billet that no woman has ever filled. I'd essentially be a briefing officer to the Chief of Naval Operations, the NCO, the Navy's head guy, for a certain area of the world like Southeast Asia or Western Europe. Hard work, long hours, but terrific experience and great career opportunities. She said my record had been sent up the flagpole and had passed all desks and chops except the CNO's office. Robin, you are not going to believe this, but the CNO's office immediately responded no to my name. The main reason? The bigwigs want to use shit and fuck or any other 4-letter word wherever and whenever they wish. To have a young female lieutenant in the CNO's office would deter them from using such expletives. Wonder what Navy they think I've been in for the last 6 years. I'm devastated. It feels like I and women officers in general will never be given a card or a key to the real Navy.
A year later, Lieutenant Coye is at the Bureau of Naval Personnel with her detailer, Commander Streeter, in person.
Commander, I really need to leave this billet you put me in. It's a misuse of my time, my energy, my education. It's just a mediocre billet, and it's been a year, and I just want out. I want out of intelligence too.
Well, no, I spoke with Commander Bill Johnson, the intelligence detailer, and he wants to speak with you.
Commander, I want you to know that if I am in a position while I'm in the Navy, and I'm not sure I'm going to stay at this point, to develop a study. I want to develop a study on the utilization of women officers, such as you and I intend to do this. This past year, I've realized that something must be done to change the Navy's laws and the policies towards women. I had an epiphany, really. It's what Jane Riley calls a click, a feminist awareness of discrimination. Discrimination just because of our gender. And that's what's going on here.
After an exciting and rewarding tour at the NATO command in Norfolk, Virginia, in intelligence jobs, Lieutenant Commander Coye moves on to the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island in 1969. In January 1970, Lieutenant Commander Coye had submitted a proposal for a group research project for the senior class at the Naval War College regarding the status of women in the Navy. It passed inspection at the War College and was forwarded with other proposals to Washington and the probable sponsors. Finally, 8 months later, at the Naval War College, Coye is called in to the deputy's office, Rear Admiral Fred Bennett. She does not know why she's been asked to see him.
Rita said the subject of your proposal is a political hot potato.
Rita was Captain Rita Lenehan, the director of the Waves, the women's branch of the Navy. The Waves were established in 1942 as the Women's Accepted for Voluntary Emergency Service. But by 1970, the emergency was long over.
Rita says the role of Navy women cannot be studied at the college. Those were her exact words to me. I'm sorry, Beth. Rita rules the roost when it comes to women in the Navy.
Can't we study what we damn well please? Isn't that the beauty of an academic environment such as the Naval War College? Controversial subjects of all types need to be studied and not banned.
We need the blessing of the sponsor on contentious projects, Beth. The Wave Director's Office is the logical sponsor for this study, and she chooses to disapprove. I agree with your inference. It's her loss because the War College offers a perfect opportunity for free, quality research by top officers on many subjects, including the future of Navy women. Yours is an idea whose time has come. I regret, but I must honor Rita's decision. I know you are frustrated, Beth.
Yes, sir, I really am. I will continue to research, but to write this study will take more than one person, not yet. One person on off-duty time. Besides, I need help from statistical analysis and editing.
Robin writes to Beth.
Oh, dear Beth, I thought admirals were higher than captains, and we know the Navy considers males vastly superior to females. So the question is, why does St. Rita have such power? If it's her department, her decision, why did the admiral tell you and not St. Rita? Will you have a chance to confront her directly? The question of academic freedom is at issue. Her decision seems to be idiosyncratic. Is it possible that St. Rita is being the fall guy for the institution and not, in fact, simply representing her own attitudes? How infuriating.
In September 1970, Rear Admiral David Bagley, Chief of Navy Personnel, was informed by Commander Sue Young, who worked for Bagley, that Coye was continuing to work on a study on Navy women at the Naval War College. Later, Rear Admiral Bennett and the Chief of Navy Personnel discussed by phone what had become of the Coye study on Navy women line officers. In September, Rear Admiral Bagley meets with Lieutenant Commander Coye in his quarters in Newport, Rhode Island, home of the Naval War College.
Great to see you again, Beth.
Thank you,
You're
sir.
looking well.
Thank you.
Been on any hops lately?
No, but I do remember those fondly, sir.
Your friend, Commander Sue Young, sends her best to you. I've come to realize that we have many of our best wave officers in the Bureau, and she is one of them. Now, to my motive for calling you here, Beth, I understand you've been working on a study about Navy women. When will it be finished?
Well, sir, I stopped the process several months ago at the request of Admiral Bennett, our deputy here. Without Captain Lenehan's approval, it can't be written the way I envision this study. I want to interview quite a few women officers, and she said, she put a kibosh on that. No, an important element will be to just hear what they want to do. So I haven't really moved on that, sir.
But Beth, you and I both know that a new wave director is being appointed this week. And I think we both know who she is.
No, sir, I'm not quite sure. I don't know the outcome of the panel. I do know our mutual friend Sue Young was one of the finalists. And among three, there were three left. And of course, I was praying for her selection.
Keep this to yourself, Beth. It's Commander Robin Quigley. And as you might imagine, Robin and I are in sync. There's no doubt in my mind that she will support your effort.
I'm pleased with Robin's selection, sir. I know and respect Commander Quigley and her abilities. A great selection, though I'm disappointed it's not Sue.
Admiral Zumwalt and I want the study done as of yesterday. Therefore, I'll give you 4 months. On my desk, 4 months.
Beth was taken aback. The admiral was asking for a miracle. She explained that she had an extensive study in mind, and to give women a fair shot, 1 year would be more likely, assuming the new wave director would give her blessing to the interviews.
Well, at the moment, sir, I have no assistants or student researchers. It wouldn't be a group research project. Rita says no on that. Further, I've just reported to a new billet on the staff here, and that's a full-time job.
Okay, Beth, I'll accept an 8-month time frame or sooner. It wouldn't be a group research project. I'm sorry.
No.
Get with it, kiddo. We need it today. August is your drop dead date.
Aye, aye, sir. Admiral, I would like to ask you to speak with Admiral Bennett about getting some resources here at the Naval War College, including some secretaries typing and so forth, as well as some statisticians, somebody who knows about statistics, which I don't know.
I'll take care of Fred Bennett and Robin Quigley. You have my word. Just write the study. Thanks, Beth. Thanks very much. I feel strongly that we must better use our Navy women resources, especially now that the all-volunteer force is upon us in 73.
I agree, yes, sir.
Beth writes to her friend Tom.
Right now, I'm both excited and scared. I just hope Admiral Bagley will smooth the waters. To complete this study could be a lifetime's chance to end years of discrimination and unequal opportunities for Navy women. Yes, women love the Navy, but they're tired of being second team members. Can't imagine the study would invalidate these feelings. Yet, such a large task, and on top of all those collateral duties. If the study flies, it'll be a monumental collateral duty. Good thing I'm a workaholic. Naturally, I feel honored to be asked by Admiral Bagley. Hope I'm up to the work for my sake and the sake of other women. I'm reminded of what JFK's father said. After you've done your best, to hell with the rest. I can only give this project my best.
In October 1970, Beth writes in her journal.
Large task, my God, to flesh out the initial concept, develop charts and procedures, and create chapters. Need some assistance in the form of actual personnel. Will ask my boss, Colonel Benson, for support. Maybe some reserve officers can help. Ensign Kathy McKinnon wants to work on the project. It'll come together, but right now seems overwhelming. Remember, when times get tough, and they will, you originally asked to do this for the sake of future Navy women, as well as for yourself and fellow women officers. Anachronistic policies need to be changed to project Navy women into the present. The study's first principle, that any future Navy policy decisions regarding women officers must be based on knowledge of the status of American women in general. Therefore, the first several chapters should cover the challenging role of American women, a study unto itself. Professor Carol Simpson, MIT sociologist and a War College adjunct faculty member, will be a large support system. Use her skills, her networks, including DACOWITS, the Defense Advisory Committee for Women in the Armed Services. Start pulling resources together. Look for available expertise, especially a statistician. You're not equipped to crunch numbers and develop the questionnaire by yourself. Money is tight, though. It'll have to be a small pilot questionnaire. First task, to refine questions to be asked of women officer interviewees. Then invite Commander Betty Aldrich to lunch. Lay out your plan. Request permission to interview her staff at Women Officers School. God, Beth, you might be in over your head in terms of the timeline. You do have another full-time job. Go walk on the beach tomorrow.
In December 1970, Beth writes to Robin.
Since my talk with Admiral Bagley in October, I've been in overdrive every day, have managed to get some help, but the major work must be done by yours truly. The study's general strategy is to recommend direction for women officers' career patterns. 4 or 5 policy options must be developed, with each option reflecting a set of underlying values, especially beliefs about the role of status of women. A simple concept, yet requiring much research about Navy personnel policies and the status of women. The Navy must ask the same question our society is debating. What is women's place or role in society? As you might imagine, Navy people have mostly dismissed the women's movement as ridiculous or amusing, believing the Navy can remain aloof from the resurgent feminist movement. At the moment, I'm researching the movement, trying to understand rationales about women's place, and have arrived at 3 overall major approaches to women's roles. 1, the traditionalist viewpoint, which claims a woman's place is in the home. 2, the neo-traditionalist perspective, which claims that society must update women's traditional role, expand and open her horizon of opportunity, as long as the changes don't upset men. 3, the egalitarian position, which perceives women as capable as men and encompasses the extreme and moderate feminist views. The above may sound terribly philosophical, but the thrust is simple and important for every woman to grasp as we each assess our future roles. Depending upon which rationale she selects, she can manifest her role or status in facets of her own life. My immediate task, to recommend future roles for Navy women officers. Support at the top of the Navy for innovation ideas flourishes. You may have heard that we have a new Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Bud Zumwalt, who's making sweeping changes to many areas. I happen to know he and Admiral Bagley are best friends, and that both want to bring Navy women to a more equal place. Admiral Bagley envisions my study as giving them the conceptual framework upon which to launch new policies. Right now, Navy women are treated as a separate wave corps, with discriminatory different policies largely reflecting the traditionalist viewpoint. You know most of these discriminatory policies. I've ranted about them in previous letters. Women are subject to separate laws, including promotion. They can't go to sea or fly airplanes. They can't command except in the administration of women, and their numbers are kept to a minimum. My basic goal is to help sway this vast and wonderful institution, Big Daddy Navy, towards selecting a policy option that reflects a far less traditional value system. One of the real barriers is senior women officers who fear major policy changes. Feminists today speak about women being co-opted by a system or institution. That's how I perceive some of our senior women who have bought into the Navy's rules and values over the years, conscious or unconsciously. They don't want change. They say, we've made it to the top with certain assumptions and values, so you younger women can do the same. The queen bee syndrome.
6 weeks later, Beth wrote to her dear friend, Jenny.
Jenny, the study is completed. I briefed its executive summary and charts to Admiral Buckingham and his staff yesterday. All I can say is we Navy women have a long way to go to reach any kind of equality of opportunity. Buck was warm and open in the briefing, at least in the beginning. Come on in, Beth. I haven't seen you in a while. Keeping occupied with that woman's study, I hear. Yes, Sir Admiral, I've been challenged by the study, but I am ready to get back to a routine. I briefed the 5 options for women line officers with their underlying assumptions, as well as their advantages and disadvantages. The briefing turned spirited as I interjected quotations from the women officer interviewees. After the 15-minute briefing, Buck asked, "What option would you select, Beth? You haven't told us your view. How come?" I told the Admiral that I agreed with Henry Kissinger, who, when presenting policy options to the president, never tells him what his own choice would be. Kissinger's rationale is that his choice might bias the president's selection. My choice might bias decision makers in the process. His line of questioning returned to the woman's study. Come on, Beth, I still want to know your policy choice. After all, you've spent 10 months or more thinking about this, plus many years as a woman naval officer. I know you. What's your favorite option? I felt put on the carpet, Jenny. Throughout the study's writing, I'd not selected an option so that I could argue each option objectively. I told Buck that based on my knowledge as well as my personal experiences, I'd have to go with one of the neo-traditionalist options. That is, give women considerably more opportunity than they have today, but not true equal opportunity. The sea duty option is, of course, precluded by statute, 10 U.S. Code 6015. Buck said he agreed with me. He couldn't imagine putting women aboard ships or submarines. As a submariner, I strongly believe quarters are entirely too confined to allow women serving with men. Given my experience as a cruise skipper, I'll never support the idea of women serving on any man of war. The efficient running of a ship is a demanding task at best. Sexual attractions and attachments that might ensue were we to have mixed crews would be a horrible problem for the commanding officer. Besides, think of the pregnancy problems. No, that's definitely not on the horizon. I observed Buck as visibly worked up over the idea of the egalitarian option. You and I, Admiral, and probably everybody in this room can't envision women at sea. Everyone nodded. I added, but my sense is that the women's movement, the pending ERA discussions, and all the volunteer force will pressure the Navy into experimenting with women at sea and women flying in a non-combat status. You might be right, Beth, the Chief of Staff, Captain Dick Anderson chimed in, but I'll fight it, as will most senior officers, male or female. The military is essentially a man's profession, and a manly profession at that. That warrior image, you know. Guess I must have a more traditional view of women. You know what I mean. Keep the home fires burning.
February 1972. The study had sat in Washington, D.C. for many months with no feedback. Beth made an appointment with Admiral Chick Rao to talk about the study and reactions to it.
Come in, Beth.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, very good. I haven't seen you for a while.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been busy. I have a problem there. Frankly, you folks folks didn't know quite what to do with it, with your report.
The study, that's
Yeah.
why I'm here. Yeah, I just wanted to know. I haven't heard a word really, and I was hoping to. Yeah,
The problem's basically this: you, the editor, did not select a clear option. And the women you interviewed were not in agreement with the policy option. So it's hard to know where do we go from there. How do I know that what the other women officers, all 500 of them, plus the nurses corps, agree with the need for change? You've got to prove it to me.
well, what would it take to convince you, Admiral?
I think it's pretty simple. I need some ammunition.
Well, let me think about this. An edited version of the study is going to be published this month in the Naval War College Review. And I'm wondering, it would be great if I asked women officers, as many as I could get, to write in letters to either Bob Lasky, who's the editor of the review, or to me. And then I could give you that feedback, and I think that would help you a lot. That would be great ammunition.
Hey, that sounds great to me. It's really a winner. So we need to get this ammunition to show Bud and Dave the need for change. Women are the best spokesperson for change.
I know. Yeah.
You know, remember we learned from the black sailors that they were, when they spoke for their causes and their concerns, that they really got the message across. Lord knows we've learned a lot from them since the promulgation of Z66 in
Yes.
December of last year.
Yeah.
What do you think about Robin Quigley's edict that you're no longer Waves and that the Wave Director's office will close?
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about this. While I support her goal, after all, Waves were women accepted for voluntary emergency service, and that's one reason I wrote this. We're not there anymore, but at the same time, I oppose her strategy and her timing. Right now, women are not integrated, and we are far cry from it, and we're going to need some kind of a central point, such as her office, to to gather information and see what's going on. And Robin, I guess, has been, I understand she now has a major command. She's gone. Her office is closed.
Yeah, there's a lot of politicking going on here, Beth, and Admiral Z and Robin don't agree on several matters.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Well, I'll be looking for that package of letters from you. That sounds really good. They'll be critical to our decision-making.
Yes, sir. And thank you for your time.
March 1972, Beth writes to Robin.
Robin, this is a critical moment in history for Navy women. The first tenet of organizational development is this: the top guns must be behind any changes. And guess what? The admirals are finally asking women what they think. It's a first. In the past, they've always gone to the director of the Waves, period. In her own way, Robin has helped by de-establishing her office. Still, she's confusing people unnecessarily. We've lost our leader at a critical time. She's off to become one of the first women commanding officers of a major command. We're no longer separate, but we're still damn different, with different personnel requirements. The guys have no idea how to deal with the so-called women's issues, so they have to ask us. Exciting times. Navy women must now move into an intensive sales mode. Part of the excitement comes from outside pressures. I'm sure you've heard that 2 days ago, the Senate passed a joint resolution previously approved by the House, which proposes an amendment to the Constitution establishing equal rights for men and women. It's been submitted to the states for ratification. A long, long time in coming, will at last be treated equally by the law.
What was this powerful ammunition that Rear Admiral Rao took to Admiral Zumwalt? We have a number of people in the audience prepared to read us excerpts from some of the real letters that were written in by women Navy officers. And we have a few people walking around with microphones. So if you have one of those excerpts, just raise your hand and Alex will come up to you with the mic.
Lieutenant J.G. Kathleen Mullen, U.S. Navy. It doesn't take a behavioral scientist to see the unhealthy symptoms in an officer community which lacks a well-defined role for itself. Ms. Coye showed very clearly the signs by which the woman line officer community can be considered to be in this unfortunate predicament. That women officers are integrated into the Navy is, as Ms. Coye states, a myth created by the women themselves. And I, like my peers, cannot cling to it. Women are needed in the Navy of the 70s. This is true not because we relieve men of sea duty, as was the contention during World War II, or because we represent a trained nucleus in the event of mobilization, as was the commonly accepted rationale in the post-war era, but because we are a valuable human source with the talents and skills required by the Navy to support its overall mission.
Lieutenant J.G. Ann E. Kerr, United States Naval Reserve. With the changing social complexion of the American female, the Navy must change its policies or let pass by a very talented and intelligent resource. In discussing this dilemma with many young women of today, I have found a general dissatisfaction with our prescribed roles. Among junior officers, joining the Navy was an attempt to remove ourselves from the stereotypical careers. Rather disheartening to find we haven't at all. Our only difference from civilian secretaries is that of a uniform. That women will and have opted for a military career rather than the accepted female careers, socially acceptable career in both the male and female sphere. It's obvious after 2 minutes in uniform. But despite this factor, more and more women are and will be seeking a military career. All, I feel, in hopes of finding a rewarding and challenging job. Women officers shall continue to be regarded by male officers as unnecessary frill, as long as the Navy secretarial policy prevails. We are expected to be admin or personnel officers. Indeed, most male officers do not even ask what my job is, they tell me.
Lieutenant Commander Sandra L. Snodderly, U.S. Navy, the late Commander Snodderly. I would like to congratulate you and your staff for publishing this article and to state that I fully support Lieutenant Commander Coye's concept that this article could be the beginning or awakening at the top Navy management level to institute what would have to be a sweeping realignment of billeting structures, designators, and career opportunities on an equality basis for the woman officer. In today's age of relaxed social standards, a possible forthcoming constitutional amendment concerning equal rights for women and tomorrow's all-volunteer military force, the Navy should now realize that women will play an important role in the structuring of the new society. The Navy must change its thinking to offer the women officers of the future a meaningful career, a challenge to command, and a challenge to lead.
Lieutenant Susan Johnson, Is that too loud?
Nope.
Lieutenant Susan Johnson, U.S. Navy. I was particularly encouraged when I read Lieutenant Commander Coye's article. Not only does her article initiate the first step toward identifying the problems engendered by current policies, but it also provides a realistic selection policy option presently available to the Navy. Much has been said informally among women officers concerning their present dilemma. However, Ms. Coye has provided the first point of departure from which other women line officers may make their thoughts officially known. I wholeheartedly agree that the Navy is wasting a lot of its talent by its limited use of women officers in the fields of administration and communication. Today's women are just as specialized and skilled in other arts areas as are their counterparts, and therefore should be in other areas as are their counterparts.
Lieutenant Virginia Mullen, a U.S. Navy. I cannot envision this article as being read by any woman officer without engendering a response, pro or con. If this article serves any other purpose than to make us as an artificially segregated group aware of that segregation, then LCDR Coye will enjoy a bright, if somewhat controversial, spot in our short but distinguished chapter in naval history. I wholeheartedly support LCDR Coye's proposition that now is the time to plan for the role of women in the new Navy. To the editors, I say thank you. To the powers that be, please listen. And to LCDR Beth Coye, bravo, Zulo, and right on.
LCDR Carol Odson.
Lieutenant Commander.
Lieutenant Commander Carol Adsit, U.S. Navy, the late Captain Carol Adsit. Whatever your trials and tribulations have been in doing this study, my belief is that it was and is worthwhile. There has to be a starting point somewhere, and your effort has provided that starting point. I wholeheartedly endorse your recommendation that a study be initiated soon to make recommendations concerning the utilization of women in the Navy. It is long overdue. And while your study and article were directed primarily toward officers, I would say that a similar group be formed for enlisted utilization. Times are changing, and we do need to look forward. I would not say that no planning has been done at the Bureau level, but what has been evident to those of us outside the Bureau has seemed sporadic at best, i.e. a crumb here and there without much apparent thought of long-range planning.
Lieutenant J.G. Barbara McCann, U.S. Navy recruiter, and today Rear Admiral Upper Half McGann, retired. Personally, I find a generalist career rather exciting, but many of my applicants do not. Since I cannot guarantee specialization or clearly define a career path for them, but the Air Force can, I consequently lose many talented women to another service. But I seriously wonder, after reading Lieutenant Commander Coy's article, what a Navy career has in store, can I honestly hope for increasing responsibility? I would like to feel that so long as I were willing to give the Navy all that the Navy expects of me, that I could in turn expect from the Navy a more clearly defined career pattern. A man's reach must exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? But we must know that to reach for this is the first time I have come across any in-depth study regarding the role of women in the Navy. Lieutenant Commander Coy's perceptions and concern in our regard is indeed admirable.
Lieutenant Jean L. Kohlmeyer, U.S. Navy. It has been a great source of personal concern and irritation in that I, as an unrestricted line officer, am not allowed to specialize in such areas as public affairs or intelligence in my naval career simply because I am a woman. However, in my job as a Navy recruiter, I have found it not nearly as easy to accept the restriction of being unrestricted. In a time when an all-volunteer force is fast becoming a reality, minus many of the necessary volunteers, young women with college degrees are literally flocking to their Navy recruiter with experience in areas related to restricted line positions. Quite honestly, I feel a bit ridiculous telling one of these highly qualified young ladies she's not eligible for specialty programs simply because she is a woman. It is a common occurrence. I normally tell a prospective applicant that it's simply the way the system works and that she too will have to accept it. But I can't help but think, as she must be thinking, why?
Lieutenant Jane F. Redinger. I read this article with great interest, and I have decided it is time to stand up and be counted. It is indeed time for the top levels of Navy management to reassess the role of woman line officer. A complete overhaul and realignment are badly needed of the billeting structures, designators, and career opportunities for women on an equal basis with their male counterparts. I would like very much to see career development patterns established for women subspecialists. Rather than playing it by ear from tour to tour, it would be nice to know where I'm heading and what type of responsibility I can look forward to and work towards. The present policy offers little incentive to a career-minded woman. It is disgraceful to the Navy that, in terms of billet grade versus officer grade, women line officers in the senior grades are underutilized. What a waste of talent. I wholeheartedly support Lieutenant Commander Coye in her efforts for change and hope that her article will be a catalyst for a serious, comprehensive study at the highest level for better utilization of the Navy's woman power.
Ensign Sharon Marish, Lieutenant Junior Grade Linda Taylor, and Helen Schlosser, Lieutenant Junior Grade. There comes a time in each century to review the traditions which, without question, without thought, have been passed down from generation to generation. The time is now for women to shoulder some of the responsibilities presented to all humans in the world before us. We are no less than our fellow man in our ideas, our standards, our goals. We ask that Navy women be given the chance to become relevant, creative personnel, to become members of the Navy team.
Lieutenant Commander Joan R. Hankey, U.S. Navy. The late Captain Hankey retired. The questions generated in your work are very real to us all, men and women alike, each for our various reasons. We are both aware it is a touchy subject, but why need it be so? Why can't the questions be settled once and for all so that the young women commissioned in the U.S. Navy are no longer led to believe things that are not true, and the record, definition in the law, and the following administrative action set straight as to the answer to the question, what is a woman line officer?
Lieutenant J.G. Lisa Lee Ann Wells, U.S. Navy. The figures and surveys of the article speak for themselves. What is not apparent to those at the Bureau of Naval Personnel, and what leaves more of an impact on us women, is the daily encounter with individuals of all ranks and grades who, after all these decades of women in the Navy, still do not understand what we're doing here. It's clear our service is considered auxiliary. I recently augmented into the regular Navy.
Ensign Kathleen McNary, USNR. A state of readiness cannot and will not be achieved by clinging to traditions of the past and fears of the present. Now and better, methods cannot be ignored by the Navy's compliancy. If modern trends are ignored, then there can only be one result: stagnation followed by regression. Change is necessary, and now more than ever before, the Navy should use all the resources it has, man and woman. When the Navy extends the challenge, it will find dedicated, capable, and responsible women leaders.
Is there anybody else here? I think, oh, Rosemary, yeah.
Lieutenant Commander Margaret Loser, U.S. Navy, Captain Loser retired. At present, the Navy in many respects has been telling half-truths to the junior women line officers. Without a career pattern, how could there be developed any credits on which to have the selected of women who captain or admiral, when in fact a line officer? How can women attend the rank of a senior naval officer, and now that she is being considered capable of serving in a senior office build? Lieutenant Commander Coye's article indicates that most senior women are serving in billets junior of their ranks. The Navy must change its drifting and dreaming attitude and fact the problems of the women line officers before a crisis develops. Most decisions made about personal qualities during the crisis situation often alleviated the crisis, but do not solve the problems. Lieutenant Commander Coye's study only surfaces the problem. The next move is the Navy's.
Thank you. Well, I think those are the voices that we're going to have today. They were pretty powerful ammunition, weren't they?
July 1972, Beth wrote in her journal.
Don't be too impatient. The wheels are turning faster now in DC. You're in the loop, thanks to the packet of letters from women officers. The word is that as a short-range approach, Admiral Zumwalt has appointed an ad hoc CNO informal study group on equal rights for women, chaired by Rear Admiral Rausch. Its purpose is to develop dynamic policies and programs to ensure equal opportunity and treatment for women. And we have some superb women in DC helping. The Admiral must be using his ammunition and more. Soon we might see a Z-gram on women.
8 August 1972, Beth writes in her journal.
I'm thrilled. Today, Admiral Z issued a Z-gram on equal rights and opportunities for women in the Navy. While the Z-gram itself isn't startling, its breadth and depth are a surprise. Big changes. The Secretary of the Navy and Admiral Z have established a task force to look at all laws, regulations, and policies that must be changed in order to eliminate any disadvantages to women resulting from either legal or attitudinal restrictions. Specific immediate actions are large: authorizing limited entry of enlisted women into all ratings, an ultimate goal of assigning women to ships at sea, suspending restrictions on women succeeding to command ashore, opening the chaplain and civil engineering corps, opening restricted line billets to women officers, offering paths to flag rank, and eliminating both the quasi-chain of command with WRs and the channeling of women officers to admin and personnel, and much more. He addressed his conclusions directly to commanding officers, asking them for their full support of the spirit and intent of the new directions for women. God, I'm excited. I spoke with Jenny this morning. She praised my contribution, and I praised her role in sustaining me through the storms. Called Billy, and she's ecstatic. Must call Robin and others tomorrow and spread the great news. I must write Tom, Billy, Robin, and Jenny and Pierre. Trust the process. P.S. Edmund Burke said, "Nobody makes a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little."
9 August. Beth writes to Tom.
Dear Tom, God, I'm excited. Have you seen Z-116? We've turned a corner in the history of the U.S. Navy. Women should be proud of their contribution, as I am with mine. As with any special interest group or minority group, the group itself has stood up and let its voice resonate. The women who supported the study and article stood up and squeaked. So did the Navy women and men in DC who helped draft Z-116. So did the many women who have pushed for the ERA for decades. Hooray, we're moving. To think I now have the possibility to be a restricted line intelligence officer, an attaché, a CNO briefer, and even a U.S. Naval Academy faculty member. That's phenomenal, and I'm thrilled. The internal fight about opening up the Academy to women is still unresolved. The Academy's restrictions to women will have to be removed through congressional members, and many senior officers will stout-heartedly defend against women invading them.
And now you have the backstory of Z-gram 116 and the huge decisions which were made for Navy women 50 years ago. 50 years ago. In 1972, there were 9,000 Navy women. Today, there are 70,000. Is that right?
I actually have no idea, but sounds about right.
I think there's 70.
Could be.
On a personal note, my dad, the late Rear Admiral John S. Coye Jr., at age 33, was skipper of the USS Silversides in the Pacific. He was one of the Navy's top submarine skippers and earned 3 Navy crosses. Coincidentally, at age 33, his daughter, me, wrote and directed the study that helped to change the direction of Navy's women officers programs. Dad came through the war alive, partly due to his analytical skills. His daughter came through her groundbreaking work because she inherited those skills.
This concludes our performance. We'll continue with a question and answer session for anyone who wants to stay after a 5-minute break. We'll be getting a briefing on women's role in the Navy today, and both Jenna and Beth will be available for questions. Thank you for coming.
I do too. Yes, yes. And this is Grandma Baggins. Bob Clem. Tom, English. Yeah. Yeah. Very sharp.